Okay, I'm back in the barn today and I'm getting ready to do some work on the tractor. We've got a hay field that's ready to be cut. I talk about greasing the farm implements, and when you finish working in the fields and you've got water and moisture and particulate, it's a good idea to purge that grease out when you're done if your equipment's going to sit for a while. But it's also a good idea to come back if it's been sitting in the field for quite a while to maybe hit it with a couple more shots of grease, especially if you are able to do that with certain equipment running. So this is where I keep my grease gun, in this kind of sealed pouch, instead of just being out in the open here in the barn where it can pick up dirt and contamination. And I know my last time out I did run out of grease from this tube, so I'm going to do a changeover. I'm going to start by pulling this back and off to the side. And that kind of locks the handle and the piston, which are spring loaded, into position so that I can now spin the head off. And I'm going to do that by turning the tube. Make sure I don't knock that handle that I just moved back, because it'll want to come shooting forward, and get that unthreaded. Now I got to reach in there and get that old tube out, which can be a little tricky. And I have some tools. That's jamming there pretty good. I am going to let this go and see if that'll help me push that forward, push that tube forward. Now, if not, if it gets stuck, also have the option, let's see, unscrewing the other end on this particular grease gun and give me a chance to push that tube out. But I can see that coming now. There's my internals. Get that tube out of there. This is a plastic tube. Sometimes they're cardboard. But what I'm going to show you here is that we got a lot of different colors going on. We got some purple on the outside, we got some blue on the inside, some red. That means we've been mixing greases here. And so this is going to be trash, and I'm going to get that out of the way. But then the inside of this tube I'm going to want to clean out. I'm going to use rags and get as much of that old grease out of there as I possibly can before I go back with the new stuff, with the new tubes that I have. I'm going to wipe down my piston assembly, try to clear as much of that grease off. Now, the spring itself is typically going to not be in contact with the grease that we're putting in. It's going to be spring loaded. It's going to be under some tension. But especially the grease that's on the far end of this piston is going to be pushing that grease forward inside the gun. I want to get that as clean as I can, so get all that old grease off of there. Just really take the time that it takes to get that out. Otherwise, we're creating a mixing condition inside our machinery, and that's not going to be good. Many greases are incompatible. Start mixing them together, and I get some bad things happening. I can get consistency changes. I can get separation of the oil from the thickener. I can have grease running out of the machine. It might be a dilution of what's supposed to be the right grease, because some of the old grease in there, or the mixed grease, may not have the right additives. And so everybody thinks about, the thickener compatibility and about it getting soft or runny. But it also can be other things. It can be different base oils, it can be different additives that are present. All of those are going to contribute potentially to the compatibility and the performance of any greases that are going to get mixed together. Now I'm going to see how effective I can be at just using this towel. And when you're using rags around lubricants, you want to consider using lint-free rags, because we can end up leaving behind a lot of material, fibers, and they can have an impact on the performance of the grease as well. So I got that run through. I'm going to be able to drag some of that grease back and forth out of there, try to clean up the inside of this tube as much as I can. Now, the inside of this tube, again, everything works out as it should, is not going to be a significant contributor to the grease that's being pumped into my machine. That's going to be driven forward by the piston and be going out through the head of this. But, you know, if I've got dirt inside, if I've got old grease in there, it's going to really block my ability to utilize this nice design here. So really, maybe what I should be doing is taking this with soap and water and cleaning it out real good and making sure I dry it really well before I go and use it. So I'm going to take a break, and I'm